Hey guys, what's up? This is Krazak here, and welcome back to another mechanics video on Pokemon. So what I wanted to do is I figured, okay, we've covered how Pokeballs work, we've covered how the catch rates work, now let's get into the nitty-gritty about stats. Now this is kind of starting to get into the competitive scene, just a little bit for you guys. I mean, this is pretty basic stuff and pretty foundational stuff. So if you guys are considering getting into Pokemon, like competitive battling, then this is probably a good start for you. If you're in the competitive scene already, then you might actually learn something here. But if you're a seasoned veteran, I'm pretty sure you know a lot of this. But I know, like, for me, I actually ended up learning a couple things during this process. So I figured, hey, I might as well share it with you guys. So without any further ado, let's get started. So, the basic thing is, your first thing, what you see here is a chart with the stats. You'll see it goes all the way from +6 all the way to -6, with 0 in the middle. Now the thing about 0 is your base default stat. So if you have 100 attack, you have 100 attack. If you have 100 accuracy on a move, you have 100 accuracy. And then you have 100% evasion as well. So basically, if it's a 90 accuracy move, you have a 10% chance to miss. Like, the opponent has a 10% chance to miss. That sort of thing. So basically, it'll calculate for 100% of its value. However, as you start going up each stage, that actually tends to increase. And it's interesting to look at how it increases. So, let's say that we have a special attacker. Let's say I'm going to use Floor just because I know that that's a good example and it can learn Calm Mind. If you use Calm Mind once, you go from 100% special attack to 150% special attack. Or this is called going up one stage, or +1. So now instead of your Moonblast having just this default power, its power is now based on your 150% base special attack, and your boosted special attack off of that. If you use it again, this also increases that up another step. So that would be +2. Or 200%. Then you also get moves that will sharply raise attack. So you get Pokemon, for instance, like Bisharp, like Scissor, like Aegislash, Pokemon that can learn Sword Stance, which is a very common move. It increases your stat by 2 stages instead of just 1. So instead of going 100 to 150, you're going from 100 to 200%, so you're basically skipping over the steps in between. And this is very handy because in 3 moves you'll max out instead of taking 6. And then there's also the +3, which isn't common on a lot of Pokemon, but there are a couple. So like Altaria or Slurpuff, where they can learn Cotton Guard, and this move will actually raise your defense by 3 stages, which is probably one of the best moves as far as stats go, as far as like bulky Pokemon, kind of tanky Pokemon, and their defense, instead of going 100 to 150 or 100 to 200, no, it goes 100 to 250, just like that. Just there it is. In another step, boom, you don't have to even worry about it anymore. You have +2, you 2 moves to get +6, and that's just amazing. And I mean, this is the way it works with like all the stats. If you have +1 each, then it'll take 6 moves. +2, it'll take 3. And +3, like Cotton Guard, it'll take 2. But you also get moves that debuff you, like Growl, which will remove a stage by 1. And there will also be some things that will decrease your stage by 2. But there is nothing yet that decreases your stage by 3. As far as I'm remembering off the top of my head. I don't have like a reference sheet in front of me as far as that works, but it's a pretty safe bet to like that you're not going to really see people debuffing your stats by 3 here. It might be 1 or it might be by 2 if you're lucky. Now, the difference here is you'll see accuracy and evasion. Their max is 300%, and their minimum is 33. Which is a little bit different. So it goes more in thirds than it does on quarters, or like 100, 150, or 100, to 66 to 50. The way that this works is your move will calculate as hitting for 100% of its value. So if you have 100 accuracy, you're going to hit every time. However, if you have like 75 accuracy, you're going to hit 75% of the time. Or if you get like sheer cold and guillotine and stuff like that, then it only has 30 accuracy, you're only going to hit it about 30% of the time. However, if you have a plus 6 accuracy, that's boosted up 300%. So basically the only moves that still have a chance to miss at this point in time, unless the opponent has some evasion on them, is really the moves like sheer cold and stuff like that. Sheer cold, fissure, guillotine. Those are the ones that only will go up to a max of 90%. But again, it's not necessary to boost your accuracy up by that much, because almost nobody runs that kind of composition. Now, where this does come in handy is for the Smeargle comp, where if you're actually running a Smeargle, accuracy is something you want, because you want to hit those Dark Voids. Now, as far as evasion goes, it's kind of the opposite. If you have a +1 evasion, then the opponent will hit 75% of the time, or basically, the accuracy will calculate for 75% of its value. So a move that has 100 accuracy will only calculate for having a 75% chance now, which is actually really drastic, and at +3, it's only 50%. So you can see how this quickly can get out of hand, and especially if you lower their accuracy as well, this affects stacks either way. So if their accuracy is 33%, and your evasion is it, and your evasion is up +6, where their accuracy is another 33%, that is pretty much guaranteed not to hit. In which case, if you can actually get that, then you can probably sweep the team fairly easily. But let's move on to some of the other applications. Basically, this means a Pokemon with high offensive stats can sweep easily. So, Pokemon like Aegislash, who's one of my favorite Gen 6 Pokemon, Volcarona, Gyarados, I mean, you can just see them. They stack Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, or Quiver Dance, or something like that. And then for defense, you can see Pokemon that are even relatively bulky. They're not like super bulky, but they have some good defense stats. Can quickly become very, very bulky. So like Altaria, Slurpuff. Or the Pokemon that are tanks in the end, so like, say, Ferrothorn or Bronzong. If they have Iron Defense, they can quickly get like practically indestructible here. Which, I mean, this is ridiculous. And in 3, like, for double teams, this means that statistically, in 3 double teams, basically the opponent will miss half of its attacks, is basically what this translates to. So this is, if you guys don't already know yet, this is a pretty big deal. With maxed out accuracy, you could pretty much sweep with OKO moves, so Guillotine, Fissure, Sheer Cold, and I mean, even though it's not necessary to do that, it is probably a really ridiculously rare circumstance, it's possible to do, and I'm sure it'll be funny when you see it. Also, so what? You get abilities on top of this, and you really start getting to a lot of the nasty stuff. So stuff like Speed Boost on like Blaziken, or Moody on Smeargle, Intimidate on a lot of Pokemon, Competitive on Milotic, Defiant on Bisharp, stuff like that, Clear Body like on Metagross. They suddenly have a lot more weight to them, because all of these abilities are ones that revolve around stats. And in competitive battling, other than just the sheer power behind your Pokemon and what Pokemon are the highest stats, this is pretty much what's most important. Just the fact that you have additional stats, you have your buffs, and then you have your debuffs, your negative stats. This is why Intimidate, you see it so often. Basically, your opponent starts out with 66% of attack power. So this is really good for the physically based Pokemon. And since we're currently in a bit of a physically based meta, this is really good. So you get Pokemon like Mawile, Pokemon like Kangaskhan, the hard hitters in the competition right now, start off with 66% attack. For Gyarados, you can have Moxie, or even for, not for Scrafty, there it is. For Scrafty, or for Gyarados, you can have Moxie. So for every KO that you get an additional 50% attack, which, even though it might not seem like a lot, like if you have Dragon Dance, like and you're only able to get 2 or 3 Dragon Dance off, and you have Moxie Gyarados, that is nasty as a combo. And you can quickly snowball out of control. And then you get Pokemon with Defiant and Competitive. Defiant is usually seen on like Bisharp, or Competitive you see it on Milotic, which basically buffs your physical and your special sweepers. So if you start off running Bisharp and you get Intimidate, you lose your attack point, but then it sharply raises its attack. So you don't start off with -1, you start off with +1. Or if they were to lower your speed, all of a sudden you have a +2 attack. Same thing is Competitive. Competitive raises your offense by 100% each time any base stat is lowered. And then this is a bit of a strange situation again, and this is also kind of random, but if you have a Moody Smeargle, and then you have Baton Pass on it, it can potentially set up a sweeper if it's on the field for long enough. Because if you want, it's like, okay, I have attack, I'm getting attack, I'm getting attack, I'm getting speed, this is really good. You can Baton Pass into one of your sweepers, and then from there, just basically ace the opponents. So then we go into, it's like, okay, it's more than just the stats, it's more than just these numbers. You also get the status effects, which I mean, a lot of in-game play you don't necessarily need to see this, but during the competitive scene, during the more like serious part of Pokemon, these are key. So you get Paralysis. Pokemon is about a 25% chance to be immobile. Burn, it does damage over time. Poison, same thing, it does damage over time. And being asleep and being frozen means you're immobile. Confusion, the Pokemon has a chance to attack itself. So, I mean, you guys know this, so it's just a quick review. But these really do matter. Paralysis will reduce this Pokemon speed to 25% of its maximum. So basically Pokemon that are super fast are all of a sudden now really slow. And you have a bit of an exception with Pokemon with quick feet, or that like have electric or ground typing. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's possible that you can paralyze a ground type if you have the ability Static, but that's pretty much about it. Like Static or Synchronize, or I think can bypass this, but that's about it. Burn is important because you're reducing a Pokemon's attack to half, and it basically deals 1/8 of the Pokemon's max HP. If you're running a stall comp with Will-O-Wisp, then in 8 turns, a Pokemon, unless they recover, will basically faint, just off of Burn alone. And you don't even necessarily need to do damage, you just need to outlast them. And you have the exception, like, with Pokemon with Guts, they can still be burned, but their attack is not lowered. And you get Pokemon with Fire typing. Now you get Poison. Poison deals damage over time, which is okay, it's kind of like Burn. Toxic, however, is an interesting case. Because Toxic quickly snowballs, and it seems to do double each turn. So like you start with a small percent, and then it just gradually gets larger. So Toxic effectively places a death timer. It's not the same as Perish Song. No, that's not how it works. How it works instead is Poison will slowly build up and slowly build up to the point at which even those heavy healers can't recover from it. Where if you're on the field for long enough, Toxic can bring you 100% to 0. The exception to this is Poison and Steel-type Pokemon, or Pokemon with Poison Heal. However, as of Gen 7, which is coming up quickly, if you haven't seen already, there's a new ability that's coming that allows for Poison to be inflicted regardless of your type. And this is on Sandit, I think? Oh, Salandit, not Sandit. Salandit, which is the new Poison Fire type. But these status effects go even deeper than this. Like, Sleep immobilizes the enemy. The exception to this is Pokemon with Insomnia, and it's half as effective on Pokemon with Early Bird, but you can still put them to sleep. And you can also kind of counter this with Chesto Berry, Sleep Talk, and Snore. Being frozen, it immobilizes the enemy Pokemon as well. And you have a couple exceptions here, Ice types, Pokemon with fire moves, and it's possible to resist Ice more with Thick Fat. But again, this isn't necessarily the best option for you. And for Confusion, you have the Pokemon has a chance to deal damage to itself. And I mean, you have the exception of Own Tempo, but for the most part, this is a bit of a dice roll. The Pokemon does damage based on its offensive stats. So while Swagger and Flatter are decent, it's, as well as Confusion's good, it's potentially dangerous due to the fact that you can boost their stats, and if they hit, then you're going to take a lot of damage. However, if they hit themselves, then it's a lot of damage to them. So it's a gamble, so you have to be the one to decide whether or not you're going to take it. Bottom line here, we're coming down to the final stretch here. This is basically just bringing everything together. Will-O-Wisp is good against physical attackers, such as Aegislash, Mawile, Kangaskhan, Greninja, all of these physical Pokemon in the meta. This means that their max attack caps at 200% instead of 400%. Keep in mind that this is at +6, so you're severely bringing down the Pokemon sweeping potential. Pokemon with Prankster are particularly powerful in this. Pokemon like Thundurus or Sableye, but it's not exclusive to this. You can try teaching Will-O-Wisp to some ghost Pokemon, or Pokemon like Sableye or Rotom, as Sableye can have Prankster, and Rotom is a really good Pokemon for Will-O-Wisp or Thunder Wave. Which brings us to the next one. Thunder Wave will often stop a Pokemon in its tracks. These are best used on fast Pokemon, so Pokemon like Salamence, or Latias or Latios. Pokemon like this that hit fast and hit hard, and especially if it's a speed boost Pokemon like Blaziken, then you can basically put a stop to that. Prankster is also really notorious with this too. For example, Thundurus is a very popular Thunder Wave user. However, you could also try this on Rotom. I don't prefer this on Rotom, but you could also try it on both your Pokemon like Clefable, which I'm also running. Toxic, as I said, puts a lot of pressure on healers and on bulky Pokemon, with the exception of a couple like Ferrothorn. This basically functions as a death timer for Pokemon that aren't easily going to die, and you're going to start hitting them really hard with Toxic. So their tactic is pretty much going to be to try and stall you out. So Toxic is basically a way to counter this. You want to teach this move to probably another defensive wall Pokemon, such as Amoonguss. I've seen Quagsire run it, but it's not one of the ones that I prefer. I prefer Burn over Poison because it deals steady damage. Sleep is more uncommon, but is allowed through some very special cases. One of these being the notorious Smeargle. If you've looked into anything Pokemon VGC, then you've potentially seen that Smeargle is a bit of a problem sometimes. Like, 99% of the Smeargles you see in a team will run Dark Void. This is pretty much guaranteed you're going to get Dark Void Smeargle every time. Because, while Darkrai isn't allowed, Dark Void is not a banned move. In which Smeargles with Moody, or Own Tempo, or whatever, it's possible that Dark Void can hit even up to 100% of the time, or more if you have any evasion. But this is ridiculous. It puts both of your Pokemon to sleep, it'll basically immobilize both Pokemon, and a Pokemon can quickly go off of that and win. And I mean, if you have Moody and you're setting up your sweepers, it is a bit random, but again, you can baton pass into that. It's like, okay, I don't need special attack, I don't need all this thing, so those can go down. But you really want, like, if you're going Smeargle, if you're going for Smeargle, you want probably defense and speed. But if you're going to set up your sweeper, you want attack and speed, basically. But other than this, Freezing and Confusion, they work, but again, they're basically rolls of the dice. They're really random, and they're not particularly reliable, although some Pokemon can run Confuse Ray fairly reliably, like Umbreon. While they're annoying, again, these are unpredictable. And as of our current generation, there's no move yet solely devoted to freezing Pokemon. I've looked into every potential move, every ice moves like It can freeze the Pokemon, but it's not guaranteed. It can do this, it can do this, it'll lower the Pokemon's speed, it does damage based on its type. No, there is no move devoted solely to freezing, so it's exclusively a side effect. So, Confusion and Freezing are both really pretty much rolls of the dice, and again, in Confusion, a Pokemon can still hit you, so it's not necessarily reliable. But it's up to you whether or not you want to use this. In the end, I wouldn't recommend using Freezing, just because while it can happen, it's not the best idea, but if you land it, you should be glad. And stat buffs and debuffs can basically determine the result of an entire battle here. Sweeper Pokemon usually carry off of a move like Sword Stance, Dragon Dance, Calm Mind, or Cosmic Power. So things like that. Tank and Wall Pokemon usually carry at least one form of defense boosting, so Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Curse, where it lowers your speed but it raises your defense and your attack, which is really good. Curse is the good one for physical attack, Calm Mind is the good one for special attack. You get a lot of Trickster Pokemon, and I say Trickster because it's different than Prankster. Tricksters are like Pokemon that run a lot of these abilities, but they don't have access to Prankster. Whereas Prankster have the priority move on moves that are not attacks. So moves like Recover, moves like Calm Mind, moves like Curse. So again, any of these Pokemon can carry a wide variety of stats. So you could see Double Team, you could see Calm Mind, you could see Thunder Wave, you could see Will-O-Wisp, or you could even see a move like Tickle. It's pretty ridiculous what these Pokemon can pull out, and I'm sure there are really good strats around it. I usually don't run too many Trickster or Prankster Pokemon, but I do have a few. And again, they usually run Thunder Wave or Will-O-Wisp. Basically, don't carry only offensive moves. I used to do this, this is the way I used to play the game, this is the way my friends and I used to do our battles, but these aren't enough. Stat moves are just as important. Some Pokemon only need one or two actual attacks to win, like for Aegislash, because it's one of the ones I'm most familiar with. If you can set up Sword Stance, and you can get a +6, or even not that, like you don't even need that. If you can get +4 or +2, you can win the game with Shadow Sneak and Iron Head, and that's it. It's a matter of actually stacking up these stats that becomes the win condition for these Pokemon. If you can get these stats, you basically win off of it. Alright, so basically, thanks for watching, guys. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. It's a lot of fun. I actually learned quite a bit. It'll help me keep in mind what I'm doing as I'm preparing for more battles and putting together teams and things like this. Just a couple credits here, just saying thank you, guys. Pokemon is not mine. This is completely fan-made, and it's educational. And really, in the end, thank you, guys. Without any of you guys, I probably couldn't be doing this for you. I mean, I know that sounds kind of redundant, and I enjoy making the content, but I make this for you guys. I make this so that you guys can get the most out of it, so that you guys can really get into your Pokemon games and start getting into the nitty-gritty stuff, and it's like, okay, I actually understand how this works now. And you're able to carry it into a lot of your next games, into your next battles, into your next playthroughs, any of that. And if that succeeds, then I've accomplished my purpose. As well as, I'm actually taking a lot out of this myself. So like, for instance, the Ultra Ball video, I'm like, okay, I don't want to use Ultra Balls anymore. Let's deal with it. So, again, I hope this is really helpful to you guys. Thank you once again for watching. This is Krazak. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like. And if you really like what I'm producing here, then you can feel free to subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Also, you can check out our other channel. There are a couple exclusive videos on either channel. My channel is focusing more around the technical stuff as well as pulling out the gameplay for you guys. But without any further ado, thank you one last time. If you want, you can leave a comment. I'll see if I can get back to you. Without any further ado, this is Krazak signing out. See ya!